I might have said this before, but I firmly believe that the Fantastic Four are the most important superheroes in all of Marvel Comics. While they may not have been amongst the company's first slew of heroes, or have the same modern day mainstream appeal as Spider-Man or the Avengers, this unlikely ensemble is an undoubted cornerstone of Marvel's long-lasting success. The Fantastic Four's creation in 1961 not only helped turn around the company's struggling fortunes, but it ushered in a whole new generation of heroes and villains, with the comic's success sparking Stan Lee and Jack Kirby to build the Marvel Universe that we know and love today. As such, the first family of comics have had numerous acclaimed runs throughout their 60+ year history, whether it's Lee and Kirby in the 1960s, John Byrne in the 1980s, Mark Waid in the 2000s, or Jonathan Hickman in the 2010s. Virtually every decade has its own quintessential Fantastic Four era that is among the absolute best comics published in that period. But with all of this said, it would be hard to overlook the troubles that this team has encountered in more recent years. In truth, the past decade hasn't been the kindest to Reed, Sue, Johnny and Ben, as they at one point found themselves de-emphasized within Marvel and even without their flagship comic book for several years. Most fans are aware that it's been a turbulent decade for the Fantastic Four, but it feels like they're now not only back, but experiencing the start of a pop culture renaissance, thanks to the combined efforts of an upcoming feature film and a series of incredible comics that regularly remind readers why this team have endured and remained so iconic. And as someone that's desperately been waiting for this ensemble to return to the forefront of the genre, I wanted to highlight the story behind these new Fantastic Four books and why I think they're contributing to the group's burgeoning resurgence. So in this video, I want to dive into the modern history of the Fantastic Four, discuss the factors that led to their shocking cancellation in 2015, and explain how the team has made a remarkable comeback under writers Dan Slott and Ryan North, and consider what makes their current ongoing series not only one of my personal favourite comics on print right now, but a real return to form for the true unsung heroes of the entire Marvel Universe. Before we continue though, just a quick reminder to leave a like on this video if you enjoy it, and subscribe to Owen Likes Comics so you don't miss out on any future videos. To understand what makes the current Fantastic Four comics so noteworthy and significant, it's important to overview the recent history of this superhero team. For several decades, the Fantastic Four were undoubtedly one of Marvel's flagship titles, and their characters and stories had major ramifications for the company's larger universe. Even by the turn of the new millennium, the first family remained a core part of Marvel's storytelling. Mark Waid and Mike Wieringo began their acclaimed run on the series in October 2002, while Reed Richards and Sue Storm played major roles in events like Civil War and Secret Invasion. Following the events of 2008's Dark Reign crossover, Jonathan Hickman would begin writing the Fantastic Four, alongside artist Dave Eaglesham and Steve Epting. Hickman's time on the series would quickly become incredibly significant, introducing the concept of incursions, which later became the central idea behind 2015's Secret Wars, and shockingly killed off Johnny Storm in Fantastic Four number 587. The Human Torch's death would send shockwaves throughout the Marvel Universe, as Hickman would use this tragedy to reimagine the team as the Future Foundation, where a grief-stricken Reed expands the group's roster and recruits the most brilliant minds from across the universe to solve all the world's problems once and for all. Hickman's Fantastic Four run was met with almost universal acclaim, and by the time it concluded in October of 2012, quickly became regarded as one of the best modern iterations of these long-standing characters. However, while things seemed bright, a major creative shake-up within Marvel would soon change the Fantastic Four's fortunes. Around the same time as Hickman's departure, Marvel unveiled their Marvel Now initiative, which sought to shuffle the deck of their superhero properties and began an era of closer synergy between the comics and the Marvel Cinematic Universe. During the Marvel Now period, Matt Fraction and James Robinson both wrote for the Fantastic Four, but fans became concerned that the group's role in Marvel's wider universe was slowly starting to diminish. These worries were amplified in early 2014, when rumours surrounding the Fantastic Four's future began to circulate after Marvel unveiled their 75th anniversary magazine cover, which shockingly featured no members of either the Fantastic Four or the X-Men. Later that month, Bleeding Cool reported that due to continued disagreements between Marvel Studios and 20th Century Fox over the Fantastic Four film rights, all comics and licensing involving the team were to be put on hold. While this was initially just treated as speculation, these fears would be confirmed in October 2014. During a panel at New York Comic Con, the Fantastic Four's then current writer, James Robinson, announced that the heroes were set to go on hiatus, and that their 53-year-old comic would end the following year. As you might imagine, the comic community's immediate reaction to this news was one of shock and dismay, particularly as all signs pointed to this decision being made based on the status of the team's movie rights rather than the quality or sales of the books themselves. Abraham Reisman, writing for Vulture, succinctly explains this reaction. He states,
"This is no small event in the history of superheroes. It's a premature ending, and it was most likely born of the comics economy's worst tendencies in the age of blockbuster superhero flicks. Before the superhero movie renaissance, a struggling Marvel sold the FF's film rights, along with those of the X-Men, to 20th Century Fox at terms very favorable to Fox. Fast forward to now, Fox is rebooting the Fantastic Four film franchise, and Marvel gets hardly any money out of the movie, unlike the insane cash it makes on flicks made by its own studio. The X-Men have become so essential to the Marvel Comics universe that Marvel would never do mass cancellations of its various X titles, although there's periodic speculation that Marvel is trying to somehow minimize X-Men characters. But the Fantastic Four only star in one monthly series, ever since their second series got cancelled a few months ago. Sales of the book have been decent, but not spectacular. They're an easy target in the war between Fox and Marvel.
The team's final issue, Fantastic Four number 645, was released in April 2015, and saw Reed, Sue, Ben and Johnny ride off into the sunset after battling Quiet Man and a team of Avengers doppelgangers. This issue marked a truly somber moment in the history of Marvel Comics, as the four heroes responsible for the company's resurgence were seemingly laid to rest. But despite the book's polarizing cancellation, Marvel still had one last Fantastic Four focused story in development, a massive, ambitious event that would not only change the Marvel Universe forever, but remind readers of this group's incredible legacy, and hopefully pave the way for their eventual return. Although the Fantastic Four's ongoing comic was cancelled in April 2015, seemingly putting the superhero ensemble on a permanent hiatus, the entire Marvel Universe as we knew it was about to change. You see, merely weeks after the book's final issue, Jonathan Hickman and Asad Ribic's Secret Wars event began. This story saw the complete destruction of Marvel's multiverse and all of reality being remade in the image of Doctor Doom. So naturally, the Fantastic Four, and Reed Richards especially, play major roles in the event. Given that Secret Wars was intended to set up Marvel's new publishing initiative, All New, All Different Marvel, which featured no Fantastic Four comics, Hickman and Ribic's saga served as a love letter and a send-off to the company's first family. Secret Wars begins with an incursion between Earth 616 and the Ultimate Universe, Earth 1610, and as both realities fight for survival, Mr. Fantastic deploys a life raft containing his family and several other superheroes to try and escape the planet before its annihilation. As Earth 616 is attacked by the Maker, an evil version of Reed from the Ultimate Universe, the life raft begins to flee, only for it to be damaged and for Sue to seemingly die when attempting to repair it. The first issue of Secret Wars ends with a heartbroken Reed piloting the raft into the abyss, as the comic fades to white, leaving behind only a silhouette of the Fantastic Four's greatest foe, Victor Von Doom. The main plot of Secret Wars sees this band of heroes crash land on Battleworld and discover that reality has been remade by Doctor Doom. While the heroes try to make sense of this new world, Reed and the Maker, who has also made his way to Battleworld, devise a plan to defeat Doom and use the powers he stole from the Beyonders to restore the multiverse. During Reed's journey, he discovers that Sue is now Doom's wife, and Franklin and Valeria are his children instead. The final showdown between Reed and Doom occurs in Secret Wars issue 9, with the entire multiverse at stake. The two men settle their feud that began back in July of 1962, with Mr. Fantastic seizing the Beyonders' powers and putting reality back to how it was. In Secret Wars' closing moments, Reed, Sue, Franklin and Valeria reunite and fly off into the cosmos, remaking and mapping each universe as they go, together as a family. As Earth 616 is restored and the various members of Marvel's roster awaken, a new era seemingly begins, one without the Fantastic Four, but only made possible thanks to their heroism and the sacrifice. Throughout the all-new, all-different Marvel era, the Fantastic Four remained disbanded and out of print. Reed, Sue and their children were not seen, while Ben and Johnny were reintegrated as part of different teams, with the Thing joining the Guardians of the Galaxy, while the Human Torch regularly featured in the Inhumans. Johnny also made a handful of appearances in Dan Slott's run on Amazing Spider-Man, following Peter Parker's purchase of the Baxter Building. In issue 3, the Human Torch confronts Peter, only to discover that Spidey obtained the building to preserve it until the Fantastic Four returned, even commissioning Alicia Masters to build a statue in their honour. This touching moment was followed up in late 2017 when Marvel began to tease the process of the Fantastic Four coming back, as they relaunched the classic 2-in-1 comic under writer Chip Zdarsky. This book, which ran for a total of 12 issues, focused on the Thing and the Human Torch reuniting, as they venture out to find their missing teammates and bring about the Fantastic Four's return. And then finally, in March of 2018, Marvel released a video with Editor-in-Chief C.B. Cebulski, publicly announcing that the beloved ensemble would finally return to print in August, with a brand new monthly ongoing comic written by Dan Slott with art by Sarah Pichelli. After almost a decade of uncertainty and 3 full years in the wilderness, it was now time for the Fantastic Four to finally come home. But before we continue, I'd like to thank the sponsor for today's video, Ekster. For those who have watched me for some time, you've likely heard me talk about Ekster before. I've used their products for several years, and it's genuinely the best wallet I've ever owned. It's sleek, compact, secure, and fully trackable, so I've never had to worry about losing it. Ekster recently sent me their new upgraded card holder and finder card. The card holder has a more ergonomic design, holds twice as many cards, and even comes with a lifetime warranty, while the finder card fits perfectly into the wallet and means you can locate your card holder or anything else you put it in using your phone, and it lasts up to 6 months on a full charge. I've been using Ekster's products for several years now, and I think both their upgraded card holder and the new Finder's card are must-haves. Ekster is currently running a 25% sale on their website, but you can get up to 30% if you use the code Owen Likes Comics or click the link in the description. Again, that's code Owen Likes Comics for up to 30% off at Ekster. Now, let's get back to the video. On the 14th of December 2017, Disney announced its $52.4 billion takeover of 20th Century Fox. Now, there are many important factors behind this deal and its long-term ramifications, but it's worth noting that as part of it, Fox's superhero film properties, namely the X-Men and the Fantastic Four, were now under the control of Disney and Marvel Studios. As such, less than 3 months after this announcement, Marvel confirmed that the Fantastic Four would be returning to print, and in August of 2018, the first issue of their brand new monthly series hit shelves. Written by Dan Slott and drawn by Sarah Pichelli, this hotly anticipated comic saw the Thing and the Human Torch reunite, still on the search for Reed, Sue and their children. As the duo reminisce, it's revealed that the Thing has proposed to his longtime partner, Alicia Masters, and he hopes that his 2 lifelong best friends can somehow make their way home to attend the wedding. While Ben, Alicia and Johnny all go out to celebrate, we jump to a faraway world where Reed Richards activates a machine, and then suddenly back on Earth, a signal appears in the night sky. The following issues explain the circumstances behind Reed and Sue's absence, stating that during their journey across the cosmos, they encountered a being called the Griever at the end of all things, who has attempted to thwart the family's mission of remaking the multiverse. Unable to stop the Griever themselves, Reed and Sue built this machine to locate Ben and Johnny, teleport them to their location, and make their family whole again to defeat this foe. After their battle with the Griever, the Fantastic Four return to Earth, only to discover they've suddenly been replaced by a new ensemble called Fantastics, who have taken control over the Baxter Building. Initially confused by this group of doppelgangers, Reed and Valeria discover that Fantastics are a hoax. They're a group of amateur superheroes who fake their heroic adventures to gain publicity. Despite this revelation though, Reed actually allows the group to continue using the Baxter Building, hoping that it will inspire them to become actual heroes, and telling his teammates that the Fantastic Four's bond were defined by their togetherness and not by a building. As the group relocate to the Things Yancey Street apartment, their adventures are intercut with Ben and Alicia planning for their wedding, which takes place in issue 5. The ceremony, however, is interrupted by the sudden arrival of Dr. Doom, who claims that Galactus is on his way to Earth and only he can defeat him. Reed freezes time long enough to allow Ben and Alicia to exchange their vows, before the group jump into the Fantastica to battle both Doom and Galactus. This storyline would introduce us to the new character of Zora, first introduced as the Herald of Dr. Doom, and would later play a pivotal role in the series. The Fantastic Four are initially forced to work alongside Doom before the villain unsurprisingly betrays them, with Sue orchestrating their escape from Latveria after removing Doom's armour and exposing him to the world. The next major storyline that would occur in Slott's run sees the heroes face off against a group known as the Unparalleled, who hail from the faraway planet of Spire. Most notably, one of the characters introduced here is the winged warrior Sky, who quickly strikes up a chemistry with the Human Torch. Although the Fantastic Four and the Unparalleled do come into conflict, Johnny and Sky's blossoming romance manages to endure, and at the end of this story arc, she chooses to remain on Earth and fight alongside Johnny and the rest of the Fantastic Four. This addition to the Fantastic Four status quo would be further expanded during the 2020 crossover series Empire, where the Fantastic Four and the Avengers are forced to fight against Hulkling and a Kree-Skrull armada. During this event, we're introduced to two child soldiers, the Kree-born Joe Venn and the Skrull-born Ankala, who the Fantastic Four free and are eventually adopted by the Thing and Alicia Masters. The events of Empire establish how the concept of found family is a central theme throughout Dan Slott's Fantastic Four, as much of his stories up until this point focused on enlarging and expanding the team's roster and dynamics. However, this would be put to the test soon after, as Johnny's relationship with Sky comes to a shocking end. In issue 32, we learn that Dr. Doom has proposed to Zora, and the Fantastic Four are invited to attend the wedding. During the ceremony, Zora calls off the wedding, revealing that she has been unfaithful, having slept with the Human Torch. This results in an epic battle between the Fantastic Four and Doom, where Victor curses Johnny and leaves him trapped in his ignited form. And after confessing his infidelity, Johnny and Sky's relationship comes to an emotional end. On the subject of endings, Dan Slott's time writing the Fantastic Four would come to a close in the summer of 2022, climaxing with the 6-part crossover Reckoning War. Here, the Watcher is attacked by the Badoon, who have been armed by a mysterious race called the Reckoning. The Reckoning trigger a series of conflicts across the universe, with the Badoon subsequently attacking Earth. The Fantastic Four scramble to stop the invasion as Reed obtains the Watcher's powers, learning that the Reckoning were an ancient race held by the Watchers centuries ago, only to use their technology to create an unstoppable war machine. While the rest of the team travel to the Shi'ar Empire, the Human Torch arrives on Spire to save Sky and rally the Unparalleled behind him. Meanwhile, after coming face to face with the Reckoning, Reed and Ben believe that their children were killed when the Badoon attacked the Baxter building, causing the two longtime friends to fight. Here, Mr. Fantastic confesses that the Watcher's powers are slowly killing him, but not before Valeria informs the pair that they've in fact survived. Reckoning War's climax sees the Fantastic Four alongside She-Hulk, the Unparalleled, Galactus and even Doom unite to stop the Reckoning from destroying all reality, with Reed seemingly sacrificing himself by using the ultimate nullifier to erase the villains from existence. However, it's revealed that the nullifier actually cured Reed by siphoning off the Watcher's energies, as Uatu arrives to teleport the heroes home. The story concludes with Reed receiving a transmission informing him of the existence of his long-lost sister, as Slott's final issue, Fantastic Four number 46, sees Reed meet with Joanna Jeffers while Johnny's condition is finally cured, and he says a heartfelt goodbye to Sky. With the family once again reunited, the final page of this comic teases a new beginning, as this long-awaited chapter of Marvel's greatest family comes to a close. Following the conclusion of Dan Slott's tenure in August 2022, the question quickly became who would take over writing the Fantastic Four. While Slott had successfully brought the series back to prominence after the controversial hiatus, many fans eagerly anticipated news of the next writer. On the 17th of August, Marvel formally announced that the duo of Ryan North and Ibon Coelho would be the next writer-artist team on the Fantastic Four. While Ryan North was a somewhat surprising name upon his announcement, he had risen to prominence experience within Marvel Comics through his Eisner-nominated run on Squirrel Girl, as well as writing the acclaimed long-running webcomic Dinosaur Comics. With a master's degree in computer science and a penchant for telling sincere, heartfelt stories that balance comedy with high-stakes sci-fi, it soon became clear that North would offer a fresh yet faithful perspective on Marvel's first family. During the making of this video, I was fortunate enough to actually sit down with Ryan North and discuss how his run on Fantastic Four came to be, alongside his initial vision for the series and the central premise that runs throughout the book's initial 6 issues. In regards to the Fantastic Four, were they a team that you were reading before you worked in the industry?
No.
Or you kind of came to the team quite new?
I came to it completely, well, not completely new, like I knew of them. I had seen their cartoon from the 70s, I think it was. It wasn't, great. But I knew who the characters were, and I'd read comics here or there. I'd read the first number 1, number 2, number 3, where he turns Skrulls into cows. Like the old weirdness of the early Marvel universe is great, but I didn't have that depth of knowledge. I don't have that for many characters. I mean, when I was asked to write Squirrel Girl, I was like, "Isn't she the lady with squirrel powers? What's going on here?" And took the weekend and read all I could about her, and then had a pitch at the end of it. And it was the same with Fantastic Four. It was a bake-off, which is where they ask a bunch of people, "What's your pitch for Fantastic Four?" And to Marvel and Tom Brevoort's credit, they told me it was a bake-off. They were like, "Hey, we're asking a bunch of people. We're not sure what we want to do next. Do you have a pitch for Fantastic Four?" And I was like, "Yeah, you know what? I think I do. I think my pitch is it's." What was that show? Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives.
Yeah.
And I was like, it's that. This guy rolls up and he sees a problem and he fixes the problem and he leaves it better than it was. He just rolls through these small towns. The Fantastic Four would be 4 weirdos who show up to a weird place, fix the problem, and move on to the next thing. And we went back and forth, a couple revisions, and finally I was like, we're on revision 3. Like, do I have the job? And they were like, "Oh yeah, we didn't tell you. No, this is gonna be your book." I was like, "No, nobody told me I was writing Fantastic Four. Thank you."
You'd think that would be kind of like quite a big deal to be writing like one of the Marvel books, and yet they kind of let you know in the most understated way.
Yeah, and it is a terrifying job because there's very few jobs in comics where you are starting something that was, or continuing something that was started by like Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, and anything you write will be compared against Stan Lee, Jack Kirby, John Byrne, Dan Slott, like everyone who's come before it, Hickman. They've done Fantastic Four. And so you are walking up to that plate and being like, I am also here. So it's not a non-terrifying job, but my idea with it was basically I was following Dan Slott and he had gone super huge with the Reckoning War, Multiverse, like big. And I was like, I'm not going to do that. I can't do that. I'm not going to out Dan. What we will do is small stories. We will do single issue or 2 issue stories about these 4 weirdos who roll into a town and find a problem and make the world a better place. And I realized partway through, I was describing it in terms of like that Drive-Ins and Dives show, but that's not that far from the DNA of Star Trek, where they go to a planet and a bunch of weird future humans and aliens beam down and find a problem and fix it and go off to the next place. So it has kind of that Star Trek DNA that it took me forever to realize this. I was literally writing Lower Decks comics.
Well, I was going to mention that.
Oh, yes, there's some parallels here. This feels familiar. I can work with this.
The first few issues of Ryan North's Fantastic Four take a somewhat unexpected turn, revealing that the group is separated following an incident several months ago. The first issue reintroduces Ben and Alicia, who arrive at a motel to discover a nearby town trapped in a time loop. In contrast, the second issue focuses on Reed and Sue visiting a diner populated entirely by Doombots, and sees them reprogram each one to teach them humanity and civility. The mystery story of the team's separation is revealed in issue 4, as we learn that creatures from the negative zone attacked New York, and with no other way to prevent the city's destruction, Reed lured the invaders into the Baxter building and transported the facility and its surrounding area a year into the future, buying him enough time to devise a proper strategy to stop the invasion. While this plan did stop the conflict, many of the city's inhabitants, including Franklin, Valeria, Joven, and Incala, were all lost in time. Understandably, this incident caused a major rift between the various members of the team, particularly Reed and Ben, resulting in the Fantastic Four disbanding and the public turning against them for losing a city block full of people. This flashback sequence is intercut with the group's reunion, as a tearful Reed explains his regret and guilt before Ben and the rest of the family embrace him. With the Baxter building still gone, the next few issues focus on the team relocating to Aunt Petunia's farmhouse, which Ben claims is haunted. Despite the others' skepticism, they awake next day to find spectres looming around them as each person slowly loses the ability to speak letter by letter. Reed attempts to make sense of this as the rest panic, until only 3 letters remain: D, O, and M, as Dr. Doom greets the family in the kitchen. Issue 7 is one of the major standouts of North's entire run, and a landmark moment for the Fantastic Four, marking the title's 700th issue in total. Here, Doom immediately chastises Reed for his failure to stop the invasion, explaining that his recklessness has taken his goddaughter away from him for a year. Doom tells Sue that he will do what Mr. Fantastic can't, and promises to go back in time, fix Reed's mistakes, and save not just Valeria but everyone that was lost. What follows is a Groundhog Day-esque issue of Victor repeatedly trying every possible scenario to stop the negative zone attack before Reed teleports the Baxter building into the future. But in every situation, Doom is unsuccessful, driving himself to the point of madness and unable to admit that he isn't smarter than his greatest foe. Doom erases any trace of his presence and returns to the present day to gloat about the Fantastic Four's situation before leaving. Not only does this issue serve as a perfect character study for Dr. Doom, highlighting not only his disdain for Mr. Fantastic, but also his sincere love for Valeria and the lengths he will go to protect her. This story overall says a lot about one of comics' most compelling characters, and showcases the real strength of Ryan North's run, telling short, often one-shot stories that seek to explore the heart and relationships within these larger-than-life characters. One of my favourite examples of this is issue 10, which focuses on an alien starship journeying across the galaxy. The issue is told from the aliens' perspective, as their voyage is interrupted by a mysterious group of beings trying to sabotage their ship. Over the span of multiple generations, we see the aliens guard and protect their homes, with the myth of these fearsome beings growing with each passing lifetime. The comic ultimately reveals that these supposed attackers were actually the Fantastic Four, seeking to repair the ship and offer their assistance, and were only perceived as generational threats due to the aliens' condensed life expectancy. The issue ends with the heroes fixing the ship and making contact with its inhabitants, as a new myth is started, one that paints the group as protectors sent from the stars who aided these people on their quest to find a new home. The majority of North's stories are told within 1 or 2 issues, meaning that this series effectively acts as an anthology book, telling a range of fantastical and high-concept tales about the Fantastic Four as they travel from place to place seeking to do good. But that isn't to say that this book doesn't contain a clear continuity or an overarching narrative, as the team's status as wandering heroes is the result of them losing both their home and their children. Issue 15 does see the return of Franklin, Valeria, Incala, and Joven, as a full year has passed since the negative zone attack, and the Fantastic Four are once again reunited and perceived as heroes by the wider world. In the meantime though, North has the group encounter everything from aliens, dinosaurs and vampires, while exploring how the team's internal dynamics change by pairing various members together in short stories. One of my personal favourite moments from this run was actually a tie-in story with the Blood Hunt event, which focused on Reed and Alicia Masters visiting an exhibition and discussing their different feelings on art before the city is overrun by vampires and the two friends are forced to take shelter. There's also the dinosaur story from issues 12 and 13, which sees the Fantastic Four transported to a world where all of its superheroes are dinosaurs, coming into conflict with that reality's version of the Avengers, as well as a T-Rex Dr. Doom, who teams up with and later fights his Earth 616 counterparts. I should note that this run is still ongoing, and so I'll reserve judgment on its overall legacy until it concludes, but I think that North's Fantastic Four has been a truly brilliant series, one that speaks to the heart and truth of the these iconic characters, and after a fairly difficult decade, reminds readers of why Reed, Sue, Johnny, and Ben have remained so popular for so many years. During my interview with North, I asked him what the overall themes and ideas behind this series is, as well as his pitch to those who have yet to read it. If you were to kind of talk to someone that was curious about Fantastic Four, that maybe hasn't read a comic, maybe has only read like has only like watched the Tim Story movies from the 2000s, or like remembers like one of the cartoons from like the 90s, but is kind of feeling this enthusiasm, this excitement to these characters, is curious to check out your run, what would you say to them?
Well, I'd say thanks. I'd say pick up any issue that interests you. You can start with number one if you feel like that's where you want to start, but each of these issues was meant to stand alone and be fun comics. I think the thing Fantastic Four have struggled with maybe for 20, 30 years is this idea of like, they're not really they're like your dad's superheroes. They're old, they're not that interesting. What do you do with a stretchy guy and a fire guy and a rock guy and invisible? Like, that sounds boring. Why should I care? And truth is, it only sounds boring because you feel like you've seen it before, but these characters are 60 years old and we're still finding new things that they can do. We're still exploring who these people are, how they interact with each other. And it's like I said in the first issue, the Fantastic Four can do anything. They can go anywhere and do anything. And characters that have that breadth of possibility with them are really, really cool. Like, if I think a lot of, like, you look at Star Trek. Okay, so original series, you've got a bunch of humans and one alien on the bridge. Doesn't sound very interesting. Kirk, Spock, McCoy, that relationship is one of the foundational relationships in modern science fiction. It's great. We're still telling stories about it. The characters themselves have such depth and such fun and such joy and such wonder in them that my advice would be, like, ignore what you think you know about them and just approach them for the first time. And I think you'll be surprised at where you can go with them. They're fun. I like them a lot. And I was also a guy, like, I didn't grow up in Fantastic Four. I wasn't a guy being like, my career goal is to write Fantastic Four. But when the chance came up, I was like, there's some really amazing stuff here. And these characters have so much potential, so much fun, that even after, twice my lifespan, there's still new things to say about them and do with them.
Yeah,
I think that's really cool. So pick up
absolutely.
any comic, you'll enjoy it.
Absolutely. And then kind of as an addendum to that, obviously we talked earlier about your entry point into comics and how kind of the vibe it very much came across to me was that kind of writing the Fantastic Four for the last couple of years has really kind of endeared you to these characters and made them a kind of big part of your kind of love of Marvel and kind of life as well. What kind of like, what has been the big takeaway from writing Fantastic Four for the last 20 or 30 issues? What have you learned about not only these characters, but also just yourself as a writer and your sensibilities?
That's a good question. I have been surprised that I've been able to do it. There was a point where I realized this job I set up for myself was basically telling a short science fiction story every month in 20 pages. And that, for a little while, felt impossible. Around issue 4 or 5, like, how can I keep doing this? This is really, really hard. And then I remembered a letter I read by Kurt Vonnegut when I was doing the Slaughterhouse 5 adaptation. I read some of his letters, and he was talking about how things were changing in the 40s and 50s, but when he was growing up, you could make a living just, selling short stories to magazines. He'd write a couple stories every month. And I was like, right, people used to do this. They would just write a science fiction story and sell it to Amazing or any of those places, Analog. And that was what they would do. So I started imagining myself as a writer in the 40s writing these stories. And I have the advantage that I have a publisher waiting for a new story for me every month. And if they could do it in the golden age of science fiction, then I can do it now. So it helped me realize that what I'm trying to do is possible. It's been done before. And there's possibilities I didn't imagine there, which is fun.
As someone who's loved the Fantastic Four for as long as they can remember and feels a special connection to these characters, it's definitely been a pretty turbulent decade for the superhero team. From the lows of the series' controversial cancellation in 2015 and the incredibly underwhelming film released that same year, to the highs of the present day, where they're starring in a truly exceptional monthly comic and have an exciting live-action film currently in the works. I think we're finally seeing the beginning of a pop culture resurgence for these Marvel stalwarts. The Fantastic Four are hugely significant in the history of Marvel, both for their role in turning the company's fortunes around in the 1960s and for being one of their flagship properties for over 60 years. And while the past 10 years might not have been kind to the company's first family, there now seems to be a renewed appetite and intrigue for stories involving these beloved characters. Dan Slott's run successfully re-established the Fantastic Four and expanded their status quo with the addition of new characters, as well as finally marrying The Thing and Alicia Masters, while Ryan North and his collaborators have built upon this foundation, seeking to examine the people beyond the science fiction, telling sincere and heartfelt tales about who these extraordinary beings are in the midst of zany adventures and world-ending stakes. The point of this video is to highlight this turbulent period of the Fantastic Four's history, celebrate their current return to form, and look towards their continued success both in and beyond the printed page. In my opinion, the current ongoing Fantastic Four comics are an absolute breath of fresh air, and something I genuinely look forward to reading each and every month. And I hope that more people pay attention to the brilliant stories being told in these comics and engage in the team's return to prominence. It's been a long time coming, but it feels like the Fantastic Four are finally back where they belong. And through considering their rise, fall, and subsequent resurgence, I hope we can continue to celebrate and appreciate the storied legacy of these incredible superheroes. Hey everyone, thank you so much for watching today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please make sure to leave a like on this video and leave a comment down below as well. Let me know your thoughts on everything we talked about in today's video. I can't wait to hear what you have to say as always. If you're new to Owen Likes Comics, please make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel with notifications on so you never miss another video. And if you want some more videos, there should be some others on screen right now that you might also enjoy. If you want to help support the channel and help me make more videos, you can go over to patreon.com/OwenLikesComics. I've just recently posted the full over an hour long interview with Ryan North, where we go deep into not only the origins and the history of his Fantastic Four run, but also deep into these issue arcs and the stories within it. It's a great interview. It's up on Patreon for just £1 a month, so if you enjoyed this and you want some more, I highly recommend going there and checking it out. And also there's lots of other perks and bonuses as well. Or if you want some more of me, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram just at Owen Likes Comics. But that's all for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for watching, and hopefully I will see you next time. But until then, take care and keep reading.